Why is it that every time someone dares to dream bigger, people start to laugh? Not because it's funny, but because deep down they know if you succeed, it exposes their failure to even try. People mock what they don't understand. It's automatic. You start something new, take a different path, talk about a vision no one else sees, and suddenly you're the joke. The whispers start, the smirks come out. Some even pretend to support you while laughing behind your back. But the truth is, most people don't have the capacity to understand something they've never dared to do themselves. When you speak about dreams, they hear nonsense, not because it is nonsense, but because they've never allowed themselves to believe something greater is possible. Mockery is the defense mechanism of the insecure. When someone sees you trying something that challenges the ordinary, it reminds them of their own limitations, the chances they never took, the fear they obeyed. So instead of saying, "Wow, that's brave," they say that's stupid, because if your risk turns into reward, it reveals the truth about their excuses. That's what scares them. Your effort becomes a mirror they're not ready to look into. Your courage becomes their discomfort. And it's easier to laugh than to admit they're afraid. But remember, they laughed at every innovator, every dreamer, every world changer in history, until those people proved them wrong. Early stages are always underestimated. That's where most people give up, when things are messy, unclear, when progress is invisible. At that point, people look at your life and think, "That's it?" They don't see what you're building. They don't see the vision. They see you working late at night, struggling, sacrificing, and they think it's all pointless. But that's because they're only judging what they can see. What they can't see is your patience, your preparation, your purpose. They want results before the roots are even settled in the ground. A seed doesn't look like a tree, but that doesn't mean it's not growing. You will be doubted the most when your progress is the least visible. The early stage is where you're questioned, ignored, laughed at, because people can't imagine how this small thing could ever become something powerful. They want the story after it's a success. But the part where it's lonely, uncertain, slow, that part makes them uncomfortable. That's when they mock. That's when they stop believing. Because the early stage is where the weak walk away, and they assume you will too. But what they don't realize is that in the early stage, you are not proving yourself to them. You are proving yourself to you. Every small move, every step forward, is quiet proof that you're not like them. You're not just dreaming, you're doing. They say the loudest one in the room is usually the weakest. So why is it that the ones who stay quiet, focused, and consistent, why are they the ones who always come out on top? Silence is more powerful than shouting. In a world obsessed with making noise, silence becomes a weapon. While others are busy talking about what they're going to do, the silent ones are already doing it. No announcements, no validation seeking, just work. They understand something the noisy crowd never will. Real power doesn't need an audience. The more you talk, the more energy you waste convincing others. But the one who stays silent, they save that energy for execution. And that's why they win. Because they aren't distracted by applause or opinions. They don't care if you're watching. They care if they're growing. When you're silent, you're unpredictable, and that makes people uncomfortable. They can't read your next move, can't prepare for your success, can't tear down something they can't see. Silence builds mystery. It builds tension, and while they're busy watching others talk a big game, they forget to look out for the quiet one who's been grinding all along. That's the one who changes everything, because by the time they notice you, it's already too late. You're not on the starting line anymore. You're crossing the finish line, quietly, powerfully. Now think about those who started with less talent, less support, less experience, but they showed up every day. No drama, no spotlight, just repetition, just relentless discipline. That's where consistency beats talent. Because talent is loud in the beginning. It draws attention. It sparks excitement. But talent that lacks consistency fades faster than it arrives. It burns bright, then burns out. Consistency doesn't burn, it builds. Brick by brick, habit by habit. It doesn't care about applause, it only cares about progress. Consistency doesn't need talent to start. It just needs a decision. A decision to keep going even when no one's clapping, even when you're tired, even when results aren't showing yet. Talent can win you the first round, but consistency takes the championship. Over and over, we see people who weren't the smartest, the strongest, or the most gifted, yet they outworked everyone else. They showed up when others quit. They trained when others complained. They kept building when others were waiting for the perfect time. That's the secret no one talks about. And here's what most people never understand. When talent gets lazy, consistency exposes it. When the hype dies down, when distractions creep in, when motivation disappears, the one who trained in silence always takes over, because they weren't doing it to be seen. They were doing it to be better, every day, no matter what. While others were looking for shortcuts, they were sharpening their edge, quietly, relentlessly. Ever noticed how no one cares how hard you're trying until you actually win? It's like the effort doesn't count until there's something shiny to show for it. Why is the world like that? The world values results, not effort, until effort wins. You can wake up early, stay up late, bleed, cry, hustle in silence, and still get overlooked. People won't clap for your process. They won't admire your struggle. In fact, most will ignore it. Because in their eyes, effort means nothing without an outcome. They see you working hard and ask, where are the results? They don't realize that every inch of progress, every setback you overcome, every lesson learned in the dark, that's the real work. But all they want is proof. The car, the title, the numbers, the win. Until that happens, they pretend you're wasting your time. But here's the paradox. They worship winners, not realizing that every winner was once invisible. Every champion was once doubted. What changed? The results. And suddenly, the same effort they laughed at becomes inspiring. The same work they ignored becomes motivational. That's how shallow attention is. People don't actually hate the grind. They just can't recognize it until it pays off. They want to see the destination, but never understand the pain it took to walk that path. That's why your job is never to prove them wrong in the middle. Just keep building, because the result will silence everything. And in this whole journey, if there's one thing that keeps everything alive, it's your belief. Your belief matters more than their opinion. The world can doubt you, laugh at you, walk away from you. But the moment you start doubting yourself, the game is over. Your belief is the only fuel you can rely on when everything else shuts down. When motivation is gone, when no one claps, when failure hits back to back. In those moments, their opinion has no power unless you give it permission. See, people love to give advice from the sidelines. They'll tell you what you should do, what you can't do, why it won't work. And most of them have never even tried what you're doing. They speak with certainty but operate from fear. If you let those voices get into your head, your belief starts to shrink. And once your belief shrinks, your vision follows. Doubt spreads like poison. It kills action. It kills consistency. And eventually, it kills potential. But when you believe deeply, unshakably, nothing can stop you. Because belief rewires how you move. It keeps you showing up when you're tired. It pushes you forward when logic says quit. It makes you dangerous to people who gave up on themselves. That's why belief is rare. That's why people will try to break yours. Because the moment they realize they can't shake your belief, they know they can't stop your progress. And that scares them more than anything. Isn't it strange how the same people who once called your dreams impossible start calling you lucky the moment you succeed, as if they forgot everything they said before you made it? Success makes mockery look foolish. The laughs, the doubts, the sarcastic comments, they all lose power the moment you turn your vision into reality. Because when the results show up, no one remembers how loud the criticism was. They only remember that you did what they said couldn't be done. The same voices that once said, "You'll never make it," now say, I always knew you would. That's how success rewrites memory. The mockery becomes invisible. Your journey becomes legendary, but in truth, nothing changed except the outcome. You were always putting in the work, always believing, always pushing. They just refused to see it until it became undeniable. It's funny how people suddenly respect the process they once ridiculed. They used to say you were wasting your time. Now they want to know your secret. They want the shortcut. But there was no shortcut. There was only pain, silence, and persistence. And that's what makes their mockery look small. Because now when they see the result, they realize their laughter didn't stop you. It exposed them. It showed who had vision and who only had opinions. And in the end, opinions never built anything. Results did. Let results answer what words can't. Because arguments, explanations, and defenses are wasted energy. People hear what they want to hear, believe what they want to believe. If they don't believe in you now, your words won't convince them. But your success will. Let your actions speak so loudly that their doubts get drowned out. When you win, you don't need to explain. The result becomes your voice. The numbers, the progress, the outcome, it says everything you were trying to explain all along. Most people try to argue their worth, justify their journey, make people understand why they're doing what they're doing. But why? You're not here to make them understand. You're here to become undeniable. That's what real winners do. They don't fight with words, they fight with proof. They show up every day, take the hits, keep moving, and build something no one thought was possible. And when they finally get there, they let the success do all the talking. The people who doubted you won't forget what you've done. Not because you proved them wrong, but because you never responded. That's what stings the most. Not just that you made it, but that you did it without needing their permission. You didn't waste time trying to be accepted. You just focused on becoming excellent. And now, the same people who once ignored you can't stop watching you. That's the real win, not just success, but silence that echoes louder than every insult they ever threw. Have you ever noticed how the more people doubt you, the more energy you feel deep inside to prove them wrong? Like their disbelief becomes the very thing that drives you forward. Why does that happen? Doubters are fuel. If you choose to burn, every you can't, every you won't. Every sideways look or sarcastic laugh can either break you or build you. It all depends on what you do with it. Doubt isn't always an obstacle. Sometimes it's a spark. Something about being underestimated flips a switch inside you. It awakens a fire most people don't even know they have. Because when you feel that the world has counted you out, you either shrink or you sharpen. If you're the kind of person who chooses to sharpen, then every insult becomes motivation. Every eye roll becomes a reason. Every time someone bets against you, you feel the pressure. But you also feel the power to push back. You start waking up earlier, working harder, moving with more focus, not just to prove them wrong, but to prove yourself right. To remind yourself that you were never the type to back down. That's when the game changes. When the fuel of doubt turns into energy for action. Most people want applause to keep going, but the real ones use rejection as rocket fuel. They flip the pain into purpose. They know that when someone doubts you, they're actually giving you power, because now you've got something to rise against. And pressure always creates something, either cracks or diamonds. You decide which one you'll be. They'll laugh, they'll whisper, they'll predict your failure. But that's the secret most people never realize. Those laughs are a countdown. Because they'll keep laughing until you give them no choice but to clap. They'll laugh when you start, laugh when you fail. Laugh when you stay quiet and focused. But once the results show up, once the success hits, their silence will be louder than anything they ever said. That moment when they realize you're not stopping, you're not giving up. That's when the power flips. Suddenly, you're no longer the one being watched. You're the one being followed. They'll want your blueprint, your mindset, your habits, but they won't understand that all of it was built from doubt, from being dismissed, from being laughed at and underestimated. That's the irony. The same things that made them confident you'd lose were the exact things that made you stronger. They'll laugh until you become the example, until your story becomes a lesson, until the thing they called crazy becomes the thing they now call genius. But they'll never admit they were wrong. They'll just act like they always believed. That's why your focus can't be on proving them wrong. Your focus has to be on becoming so good they can't look away, so consistent they can't doubt anymore, so powerful they can't speak over your result. Because when results show up, their laughter turns into silence. And silence always tells the truth.